welcome to Burning Questions. I'm your host, Leslie Davenport, and this is a place where we explore ways to open our minds, our hearts, in how to transform our relationship to global climate change and to ourselves and with each other so that we can be more effective in being part of the needed change. And my guest today will have a lot to say about that. I'm excited to introduce Dr. Lise van Susteren. She's a psychiatrist and a pioneer in climate psychology. She's one of the co-founders of the Climate Psychiatry Alliance, an author of Emotional Inflammation, and an expert witness on landmark youth climate cases, and so much more. So, Lise, thank you for being here with us.
Well, thank you, Leslie. It's really a pleasure. You and I have known each other for a long time and at the very inception of all of these issues. So it's fun to be back together.
Yes, it is. And I only scratched the surface of all the things you do and all of your current involvement. So is there anything you'd like to add to just provide a little background of what you're involved in?
Well, in addition to the cases that you mentioned, the youth plaintiffs that are suing government for inaction on climate. And of course, young people are at the tip of the spear. Those who are going to be here the longest are going to suffer the most, let's face it.
Yes.
They also have the most opportunities, which sometimes bothers them because we're not thinking they're doing it in lieu of us, but we do realize the compelling nature of what they have to say. So and one other thing is that I would like to just mention that a collection of stories or issues, essays about climate and mental health is available on Climate Junction, which is the latest effort that I engage in with other like-minded individuals.
Wonderful. Yes, and I'll include that link in the show notes so people can get to it easily. Well, let's roll things back a bit and talk about how you got started in climate work. Did you have a climate wake-up moment? What brought you into doing this?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I always like it because it reminds me so much of the sort of joy, effervescent feeling of possibility and connection and purpose that I felt at that converging moment. Leslie, I was running for office for the U.S. Senate in Maryland. I obviously did not prevail, but that's another story. And I was at a breakfast meeting, and I knew there were a couple of rich guys and a couple of people who had been in the politics a long time. So I said to myself, you know, you need a plan B, Toots. This may not work out. And it just so happened that there was a documentary on, it's called The Next Industrial Revolution by a guy named Bill McDonough. And it was all about a cradle to cradle connection to nature, using nature as our foundation, our soul, our teacher, the world in which we need to return, in a sense, in order to heal what had become so much of a feeling of homelessness almost as the world changed around us very quickly. And now we know, of course, there's so many studies that show the role of nature, but that was in 2005. And I thought, well, if this doesn't work out, I know where I'm going. And of course, I thought that things would change overnight. And that was 22 years ago, 21 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a perfect lead into my next question, which is that doing this work puts us face to face with a lot of harm and upheaval. It's really difficult work, it's emotional work. So, what sustains you? What gives you support in this process?
Well, you know, sometimes I wonder when I'm eating dirt on any particular day, if it's anything, but there is a lot that sustains me, and that is the sense, of course, the connections. And I have said to myself, as bad as climate is, this was in the old days, I used to say this to myself, boy, I've met the most amazing people
Hmm.
and dedicated and driven, purpose driven. And intelligent, full of conviction. But what sustains me really, and this isn't such a happy thought, but what sustains me is we have to do this. There are
Yeah.
too many people suffering, and it's very hard to forget that though we, perhaps the age that we're at or where we live, how we live, etc., we're in a bit of a bubble. It doesn't mean we can't be affected by unexpected weather events, etc. But many of us who might be listening to this podcast might be more protected than others. And the idea of our responsibility to each other and the fact that empathy really for each other is the only foundation upon which we will survive. And that goes not only for people, but for animals and for the natural world. So that realization is what has me pick myself up, dust myself off,
Mm.
and continue the journey.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think another piece of the encouraging news is that more and more people are awakening to what we're really facing in deeper ways. And more people are wanting to find ways to participate and contribute. And sometimes that takes time. So, from where you stand in your experience, is there anything that you see as kind of the most pivotal action or ways for people to get involved?
Well, let me start off by saying that what I tell myself, and this is not my insight, it was said to me, I was out in front of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, not getting arrested, but I was protesting. They tend to grant permits for pipelines pending environmental reviews that don't happen, but I digress. But what has been said is that just as there are climate tipping points, there are social tipping points. So, all along the spectrum of action, whether it's convincing our friends, our neighbors, whether it's standing up at work, whether it's something more public, whether it's testifying in court or in a legislature or writing books. You've written so many books. All of these things go in to what becomes the social cultural norm. And we know from experts on persuasion that we can talk until we're blue in the face sometimes, but what people really respond to is what they see other people doing. So, what's pivotal is for us to continue to produce, to act, to convince, to drive, to find purpose, and to share it with others in this effort to do what has to be done. So
Yes.
I will say there's nothing pivotal. There are insights that make me realize that all across the spectrum, action is imperative.
Yes, and it's so relational in the way you're describing it, how important that is. Mm-hmm.
But yes, let me add to that that numbers, statistics, and things like that have an intellectual appeal. But frankly, a lot of the most intellectual types certainly had their role early on, and they certainly continue to have their role. But they're not necessarily the most effective people influencing others
Mm-hmm.
because it's an emotional connection. As Maya Angelou once said, and I just love this, as long after people have forgotten what you say, they will remember how they felt when
Mm.
you said it. So,
Right.
our ability to evoke emotion and empathy are the two key drivers, in my opinion, of being effective.
Yes, to get our hearts and our whole being back in this. Yep. Yep. Well, the next question you've answered a little bit, but I'm going to ask it again and maybe something else will come up. This work has a lot of ups and downs. And I'm wondering if there's anything that's a go to practice, perspective, a book, another quote that kind of brings you back home to renew your commitment.
You know, there's so many, it's like a mosaic. The feelings that I have in dealing with this now for a couple of decades plus. And there are days when I feel angry, and I like it. The days when I feel angry because I've turned my anxiety into something that feels empowering. And that's me. I'm not saying that's everybody, but that's me. And so the idea is when you say, is there a quote or a book or something on any given day? It can be something that softens my thoughts, or on the contrary, when I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, just burn the damn place down. And excuse my French for saying damn, but there are times when I think, throw in the towel, whatever. I don't feel that way, but as a transient emotion, because I turn around, of course, that's
Yeah.
not going to happen. But there are times when you yo-yo between the highs and the lows, as you say. And
Mhm.
it reminds me when I think of a quote that I love of Shirley Chisholm. She says, if they don't give you a place at the table, bring a folding chair. So the
Mhm.
idea
Mhm.
is show up wherever it is, wherever you can. If you're a teacher, show up when it comes time to say, what do we got grass in the front yard for? Let's build a vegetable garden. If you're a neighbor and you can get solar panels, make sure you got plastered on the front of your yard. We have solar. If you're an educator, teach about it. If you're a friend, talk about it. So all of these things, and there are sayings and books, and of course, you've got a whole bevy of offerings that help people to wade through because, we can be natural advocates, and it can be
Yeah.
something that we have to learn. And we shouldn't expect
Mhm.
that we're always going to be good at this any more than we'd be good at a musical presentation or writing a poem or something like that. But
Yeah.
what I will and do find is get yourself involved with some like-minded individuals, because that's what ignites that collective sense that
Mhm.
gives us that transformative feeling, really, of being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And that's where you get the best action and the most healing.
Yes, yes, beautiful. Beautiful. Well, everything we're talking about, of course, is broad and deep, stretches behind us, it stretches out before us. So before we wrap up, I'm going to ask if there's anything else on your heart or your mind that you haven't spoken to that you would like to.
Well, so many thoughts flood through my mind, somewhat echoes of the elements of what I've said, because those are the things that are closest to my heart. But I guess if I boil it out and I think to myself, well, what comes to mind? Um, I remember in the days when I was in a philosophy, I was going to be a philosophy major. And one of the things that marked me so was that Aristotle, um, not to get too eggheady about it, but Aristotle said about the meaning of life, because I remember I was in my first psychiatry class, and I said, what's the meaning of life? And the teacher said, oh, we don't need to know about that. And I thought, what do you mean we don't need to know about that? That's the question. Anyway, so Aristotle said the meaning of life is to find what you're good at
Oh,
and to
interesting.
do it, to do it, and to do it with what he called arete, which means with passion.
Yeah.
And he said that will bring you the ultimate sense of purpose and
Hmm.
bring the sense of a soul-filled, productive life to your consciousness. So find what you're good at, big, small, right, left, up, down, find what you're good at and do it with arete.
And isn't it wonderful that every profession, every institution has room to apply exactly what you said toward a healthier, safer, more just world?
Yes, it is.
So many
And
doors.
to all of the young people, I think to myself, we're sorry about what the conditions are. Please know we're working hard. We're thinking about you, and we recognize as we look around that they aren't the ones anymore that need convincing. It's
Yes.
the ones that have the pen to the policy and flooding their offices and making sure that they know what we are thinking and that what we are feeling is one of the key pressure points that we can think about as we review all of what's involved in climate activism.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you watching the video, you'll see on the screen some links of how to follow Lisa and her work and the organization she's involved in. It's also in the show notes. So please check those out and subscribe to the channel so that you can be part of this growing community and conversation, because we're always better together. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Leslie.